Chilling tales for dark nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
It's time to turn off the lights and turn on the dark.
Chilling tales for dark nights.
Good evening, listeners, and welcome to another edition of Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I'm your host, Steve Taylor, and tonight I'll be your guide as we set sail into waters where grief, legend, and witchcraft converge. In the darkness between sea and shadow, sometimes the light that beckons is the very thing that dooms you. Before we step into tonight's tale, I want to remind you that this is a very special season here at Chilling Tales. After 5 long years, our Evil Idol voice acting competition has returned. That's right, Evil Idol 2025 is underway right now, running all throughout September and carrying us deep into spooky season this October. 50 contestants have entered, and every weekday in round 1, a brand new entry premieres on our YouTube channel. Only 25 will move on to round 2 in October. And who decides who advances? You do. Your votes make the difference. If you've ever dreamed of helping to shape the next generation of horror voices, this is your chance. Head over to YouTube, subscribe to Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, and cast your votes today. While you're there, don't forget to follow us on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube with the notification bell turned on, and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast if you like what you hear. Want even more? Become a member at chillingtalesfordarknights.com. Members enjoy ad-free episodes, early releases, and bonus stories you won't find anywhere else, all for just $7.99 a month or even less if you sign up annually. And one more thing. We're haunting social media everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, X, and now TikTok. We're getting ready to launch our very first content there soon. So follow us now and don't miss a single scream when it drops. Now then, dim the lights, settle in, and prepare yourself for tonight's journey. Tonight's feature comes once again courtesy of our friends at Velox Books, from the imagination of Canadian author J.G. Martin. If you tuned in last episode, you'll recall we featured another of Martin's tales from his collection, Crooked Antlers, a collection of short horror stories. And I'm excited to tell you this won't be the last. J.G. Martin will be featured again on our very next episode as well. The story you're about to hear is included in Crooked Antlers, now available on Amazon. If you enjoy what you hear tonight, I encourage you to pick up a copy and explore more of Martin's nightmares for yourself. Our tale, The Legend of Cold Rock Keep, will be performed this evening by none other than Chilling Tales veteran and alum, the legendary Jesse Cornett. We'll tell you more about Martin, his book, and about Velox Books after the performance. For now, brace yourself. This is a tale of lighthouses, loss, and the shadows that linger when the sea takes more than it gives back. And so, from author J.G. Martin, courtesy of Velox Books, I present to you The Legend of Cold Rock Keep.
The island was nothing without the lighthouse. It was the defining feature. A stone monolith rising out of the earth like a haunted spire, sweeping its glowing gaze out across the rage of the Atlantic Ocean. Cold Rock Keep was different from other lighthouses, though. Cold Rock Keep had a body count. Ever since anybody could remember, the island had been a haunted affair, a cursed place where ships went to die. The legend went that once upon a time, way back when the town was first erected in God knows when, there lived a coven of witches upon Cold Rock. They practiced their craft there because they thought the ocean would keep them safe. And it did, for a time. But like any old story, the players eventually disappear, and so too was the case with the witches. They died off or were killed. Who can say? History has a funny way of forgetting itself. Whatever the case was, the shipwrecks didn't let up, and so a lighthouse was built on the island to warn ships away from its serrated shores. The lighthouse, though, didn't seem to help matters one bit. In fact, after it was built, the deaths just went up and up, and soon the jagged coastline of Cold Rock was filled with the corpses of shattered vessels. It didn't take long for the townsfolk to come to an agreement that the island was cursed, and the lighthouse had somehow become a conduit for evil. After that, folks started avoiding Cold Rock. Local folks, at least. They knew better because their mothers and fathers knew better, and their mothers and fathers had known better before them. They passed down the warnings in bedtime stories or cautionary tales before trips to the sea. Don't drift too close to the lighthouse, they'd say, unless you want the ocean to gobble you up. My brother often told me the same. A fisherman by trade, George was the captain of a small ship called the Trout's Kiss. It didn't belong to him, it belonged to the company he worked for, but it really should have. He could drive that boat through a hurricane and make it out the other side. Everybody knew it. He wasn't afraid of anything in all the ocean, save for that damn lighthouse. And he'd tell you the same. I'd sooner row a skiff through a storm, he'd say, a pint of beer in his hand, than drift the Trout's Kiss past Cold Rock. That was then, though. He died 3 days after my 9th birthday. Capsized. His boat tossed him and his first mate overboard, and the Trout's Kiss smashed into 1,000 pieces against the Cold Rock coast. I went to bed, and my brother was alive. When I woke up, he was dead. No goodbyes, no last words, just gone. It was the moment I realized the legend of Cold Rock Keep wasn't just a myth. It was the moment I realized it was the truest story ever spoken. See, my brother was a superstitious man, a good sailor. There was no way he'd find himself near those rocks if not for some darkness pulling him there. And maybe that same darkness had then begun pulling me. Or maybe it was just my childhood grief. But not a week after his funeral, I went down to the docks and untied his skiff. Then I rowed it out into the harbor. I rowed it out toward Cold Rock Keep. Too long, I decided, had that towering mausoleum lorded itself over our gentle town. Too long had it stolen our loved ones and filled them with the sea. It was time somebody did something about it, and in that moment, on that brisk summer night, I decided that somebody would be me. So I set off toward the sweeping beacon that haunted the ocean like a ghost in the dark. I rowed and rowed until I got close enough that rowing didn't do much anymore, because the ocean became all rolling waves and riptide currents. I remember feeling panicked, like I'd made a grave mistake, an impulsive decision that I was now going to sorely regret as I tossed and churned in the soup of the sea. First, I lost one oar, then the other. Then the boat tipped over like a rubber duck in the bath, and the looming figure of the lighthouse vanished. Darkness took me. Frigid, wet darkness. When I came to, I spat out a river of seawater, trembling and disoriented. I gathered my bearings. Surrounding me was a mess of wood, the remnants of my little skiff or some other sorry vessel. Not 10 feet away, great waves thundered against razor blade rocks jutting out of the coastline like the jaws of a shark, while their sea spray washed over me, reminding me where I was. I rolled onto my back. There, towering above like a titan of myth, loomed Cold Rock Keep. Its spiral architecture reached up into the moonlit clouds while its yellow light swept in a hypnotizing circle, humming an electric tune. It felt like it was calling to me, beckoning me towards its heavy doors. I pulled myself to my feet and realized I'd come all this way without much of a plan. In retrospect, I wondered if I ever truly meant to make it there at all. Perhaps I had been so sick with grief that I was hoping that the ocean would simply swallow me up in the same place it swallowed George, and then it would let us be together again. Perhaps I just wanted an end to my misery. Whatever the case, I didn't have anywhere to go but forward now, and so I walked toward the lighthouse. As I did, I passed stone columns, gravestones, I realized, carved with effigies for men whose stories I knew better than any nursery rhyme. Rupert Doogie, 1892. Fell from the lighthouse while effecting repairs to the roof. Body inexplicably found 30 feet from the structure, torso split in half on the rocks, seagulls nesting in his ribcage. Howard Newton, 1903, died peacefully in his slumber. Haunted by vicious voices, took a liter of whiskey just to get himself to sleep every night. Found dead in his bed, partially decomposed with his open journal in his hands. His last entry: I fear the ocean not half as much as I fear the malice in these walls. The lighthouse had always been monstrous. That much wasn't up for debate. Whether it smashed you on the rocks or drove you mad once you washed ashore, Cold Rock Keep would take what it wanted and leave the world more miserable for it. Now, I meant to change that. Little 9-year-old me with nothing to defend himself but a sturdy rock and his brother's hand-me-down pocket knife. What choice did I have? At that moment, none. I was there, and there was no going back, only forward. So I ascended the steps to Cold Rock Keep. When I opened the doors, I found old beer cans and nudie mags. The walls inside were dressed in graffiti, and the tables and chairs were chipped and carved with names and memories. A steel spiral staircase wound upwards, clutching the narrowing walls of the lighthouse. At the very top sat a hatch leading into the uppermost room. Something tugged at me then. Something pulled me toward it, and I knew then that it was the room that light spun in lazy circles, tempting souls to their deaths. It was the source of all this misery. Heart thrumming, I took the stairs 2 at a time. When I reached the top, I found the hatch sealed shut. An old padlock hung from it, bearing the inscription, Maintenance Key Number 1. While I didn't have the maintenance key, I did have a rock, and so I bashed the padlock clean off the hatch and pulled it open. Light blinded me. Vicious, vibrant light spilled out like an uncorked supernova, my ears filled with the whirring drone of whatever mechanism drove the artificial sun. Shielding my eyes, I clambered up the ladder, leading into the hatch. 1 step, 2 steps, until I was in the room proper. And then something strange happened. Things became dim. I opened my eyes and found the blistering light gone. In its place was a faint glow, and even that was quickly fading, receding into some great void until it was only a firefly speck in the distance. Then that, too, vanished. Darkness enveloped me. Not turn off the lights, it's bedtime darkness, but true darkness. The sort of darkness you find yourself in when you're 6 feet under, buried beneath the worms and the dirt. The sort of darkness that's so thick the pressure of it is almost suffocating. My hand scrambled across the surface, looking for the hatch I'd come through, but it was nowhere. Gone. I shouted and I hollered, cursing the lighthouse, cursing myself for being foolish enough to stroll into Satan's doorstep with nothing but a rock and an old pocket knife. But predictably, that didn't solve my problem either. Eventually, out of options, I sat down in the void and cried. I cried for my mother, who would wake up tomorrow worried sick, wondering where I was, calling me in as missing to the sheriff. They'd search and never find me, and she'd just tell them to search some more because there'd be no way, no possible way, that she could go on living if she knew both of her babies were gone. I cried for my father, who was out of town on business and would no doubt blame himself for always being away or abroad, and then maybe one day he'd get so fed up with all the guilt that he'd turn it around on my mother and tell her she should have been watching me better. Most of all, though, I cried for my brother. I cried for George because he had always told me to steer clear of Cold Rock Keep, and then he died to teach me that lesson. I decided I knew better than he did, though, even though he was the fisherman and I was the stupid little brother, and I came out here looking for revenge. And all I managed to do was make things so much worse. "Look at this one," a nasally voice said. "He hasn't any light." I wheeled around, terror jolting through me. "Who's there?" He we'll join the others." "The others?" I shouted. "You mean my brother?" "Give him time, Agatha," came another voice, this one more shrill. "Time?" the first voice snapped. "He is here for violence. He is angry, desperate, and murderous, and would see us killed and our home burned to ashes. Don't you see? He has no light, Beatrice, and therefore the cretin has no time." I scrambled backwards on instinct. It was difficult to pinpoint which direction the voices were coming from, but I was certain there were two of them. "Don't be so dramatic, Aggie," the second voice said. "Can't you see the source of that anger? It's his brother. He's been hollowed out by grief and filled up with pain. Poor thing." "You're them," I stammered, my mouth too dry to properly speak. "You're the witches, aren't you?" Agatha's nasally voice snickered. "Oh, look how perceptive the child is, sister. I hardly think the world will miss a lightless dunce such as he. Let me do it now. I'll be quick about it." "Hush, Beatrice." "Child, I sense a haunting in your soul, a longing for your brother. Do you miss him?" The question made me furious. It was proof, I realized, that the witches knew about the murders they were committing, knew about the pain they were causing, and yet still chose to reap our community again and again. Tears welled in my eyes. "Yes," I said, lips trembling. "Yes, of course I miss him. Do you have any idea how many innocent folks you've gone and killed? Do you have any idea how many we've saved?" Agatha's words caught me off guard. I tried to voice a response to her then, something well thought out and appropriately accusatory, but all I managed to do was stand there, slack-jawed. "See, Agatha, look there, near his chest. Please, that's hardly anything. Still well worth a purge. It's proof the child got some light in him. That's what it is. Just about anybody's got some light in them, you bleeding heart." The situation was the most bizarre and unsettling thing I'd ever encountered. "What do you mean, people you've saved?" "What we mean," Agatha began, somewhat impatiently, "is that Beatrice and I lived peacefully on Cold Rock Island for many, many years. We practiced the magic of the land, grew our crops, caught our fish. We didn't hurt anyone. But one night, a vessel goes and lands on our shores, ties us up in the middle of the night, and burns our bodies in a pit. A pit. They drink for hours and hours after that. A real revel. Exchanging high fives and how do you do's." Beatrice sighed. "They slept in our ashes. Not terribly hygienic, were they?" Agatha said. "Course we had seen their ship on the horizon already, saw it getting loaded on the docks for some time, and so we knew what was coming our way. Took precautions." "I took precautions," Beatrice said. "You tried to beat them with a club." "Must you always interrupt? I'm being kind enough to give this little cretin some context before we snip him. The least you could do is pipe down for his bedtime story." Agatha took a moment, and I could sense the two witches glaring at one another in the darkness. "Anyway, dunce boy, where was I? Ah, yes, we made damn sure our murderers met an end that suited them. Sent them all into a rage, didn't we? Made 'em chop each other up. Poetic justice, you might say. Beatty and I figured we'd just go ahead and get rid of that bad lot before they infected anybody else with all that hatred. Then, wouldn't you know it, we found out that once you're dead, you're much more in tune with the spirits of the living. Learned we could measure the worth of a man from 1,000 yards based on the size of his glow, and often we did. We used our magic to lure the worst souls into the rocks, mangled them up good, and saved folks the grief of dealing with them." I shook my head, stunned. So many ships crashed on those rocks, so many. You're telling me that everybody, all those sailors, were evil? Not in the least, sweet little fool, Agatha said. We only killed the bad eggs. The rest of the folks washed up on shore, and somebody came around for them eventually. Same goes for the lighthouse keepers. Most of them, anyhow. There was that one doing work on the roof before a storm. Poor sod got blown halfway across the island before making a mess on the rocks. Oh, Beatrice added. And there was Howie, the sweet man who liked to journal. I did so like him. Awfully handsome. Howie? You mean Howard? Agatha let loose a snort of laughter. Poor lad was a smidge clairvoyant and never knew it. Said he heard voices, and I suspect he did. Overheard me and Aggie arguing till the break of dawn like a couple of braying donkeys. It's no wonder he drank himself to death. A shame. Yes, a shame. The man had a great taste in whiskey. The void, once pitch black, grew brighter. It became bright enough that I could make out shapes flitting around me, formless, like laundry in the wind. Oh, Agatha said, somewhat shocked. He can see us now, can he? Course he can. Look at him. He's glowing, isn't he? A question lingered in my mind. Why is it that your magic became more powerful after the lighthouse was built? More powerful, Beatrice asked, confusion lacing her words. Whatever do you mean? It's just that the folks back in town always said there were more deaths after the lighthouse was built. Did it help you kill folks? Ha! Agatha laughed. The child's stupidity is beginning to grow on me, Beatty. I'll give you that. No, you toad-brained fool. The lighthouse didn't make us any stronger or smarter or more devilishly beautiful than we already are. All it did was convince folks to come sailing into the harbor, since they figured what could it hurt with the lighthouse guiding them away from all that ails them. More sinners, more shipwrecks. Easy as that. Oh, I said, and another thought crossed my mind. As it did, the shapes slowly faded from view. My glow, I realized, was dimming, and the void was beginning to grow, suffocating all over again. And my brother, why did you kill him? Oh, Beatrice said, pausing. Well, we didn't kill your brother. Tears formed in my eyes, and I quickly dabbed them with my sleeve. What do you mean you didn't kill him? He died out there on those rocks. His boat capsized not 100 yards away. Well, Beatrice said slowly, we had only ever intended for, oh heavens, who was it? Reed Vallis, Agatha offered. Reed Vallis, of course, yes. We had only intended for that fellow. He was the first mate on the boat your brother captained. That man was an urchin, a rapist, a murderer. He was a stain on this town, and frankly, the world is much better off without him. I sucked in a breath, a sort of weepy, deep breath, the kind you take when you're beginning to calm down, but you're not quite ready to be done with being upset. Then why did you kill George? Dunce child, Agatha said. Weren't you even listening? We just told you that we didn't. Aggie, Beatrice snapped. Look at him. The boy is glowing again, faint as it is. We should really be nurturing that light. Agatha mumbled something, sounding equal parts impatient and frustrated. Your brother was meant to wash safely ashore, child. Honest. Reed panicked after the Trout's kiss capsized, and not wearing a life vest, grabbed onto your brother to save his own skin, and ended up drowning the both of them. The words washed over me like a winter tide, cold, painful. And you let Reed pull him down. You didn't try to help. How to explain this? Agatha said with a sigh. Our magic is less of a scalpel and more of a sledgehammer. Small incisions in destiny, like pulling your brother free from Reed, proved impossible for us. Then can you bring him back? I asked, desperate and heartbroken. Since he wasn't meant to die. I never even got a chance to say goodbye, and no, Agatha said. We can't. It was exactly what I expected to hear, and yet it still hurt like the day he died. Are there many moments like that? I muttered, the light radiating from me flickering into the dark. Off and on, off and on. It was as though it couldn't decide whether it wanted to stay or go. Do many innocent people die because of the things you do? Silence filled the void. If the darkness had been thick and suffocating, then this silence was like the bottom of the ocean. It felt heavy, crushing. Sometimes, Beatrice said. Sometimes I suppose that innocent folks do get washed away. Is that okay? I asked, my tiny voice cracking under the weight of the question. It didn't feel okay to me. Why did innocent folks have to die so bad people could be punished? Should you really be doing that? Beatrice began. I'm not sure. Beady, Agatha said, and her voice was hushed. You're glowing. Oh, Beatrice said, and the formless shape of windy laundry sort of bent down as though examining itself. It appears that I am. I'd almost forgotten what that felt like. Why, look, you too, Aggie. She giggled. I can almost see your icy heart with all that light. True to Beatrice's words, the both of them were beginning to radiate a faint glow. The shapes danced upward, bickering with one another in words I couldn't quite understand. They swirled and snapped and whipped above my head until eventually they stopped and floated back down. Now, bright things. We've had it out, Aggie and I, and we've decided you're right. I am? I said. Course you are, dunce boy, Agatha said. We got so wrapped up in keeping business and trying to do good that we forgot to nurture the most important light of all, our own. Beatrice snickered. Oh, look at you, Aggie. First you wanted to purge the poor child, and now you're doting on him. Well, that was before he started glowing like a candlestick, wasn't it? She's right, child, and so are you. It's become clear to us that we can't rightly keep helping other people if we're out of sorts. So we're going to focus on us get back our light." "You are?" I asked, feeling joy for the first time since George had died. The light surged inside of me. "That means you won't hurt anybody else?" "Mm-hmm," Beatrice said. "We'll leave the hurting to the folks still living and breathing," Agatha added. "Which reminds me, we've done some hurting ourselves." "Afraid that we have," Beatrice agreed. Just then, the two formless shapes began to materialize into something tangible, human. A pair of glowing corpses appeared before me with flesh sloughing off their frames and boiling wounds upon their faces. One smiling, the other scowling. "We know you didn't get a chance to say goodbye, which is partly our fault." "It's all our fault, Agatha. And it's true that we can't bring George back or take back what we took from you." "So," Agatha said, rubbing her mangled hands together, "we've decided to do one last bit of magic. You know, before we leave for good. Consider it a parting gift." Beatrice pulled me into a tight hug. "It isn't much, child, but it's the best we can do." That was my last memory of the witches of Cold Rock Keep. I woke up in my bed with salt in my hair and seaweed down my shirt. My mother shrieked for joy when I did, and another man, a man I didn't recognize, but would later learn was a doctor, told me I had been asleep for some 14 hours. The police, he explained, found me washed up on the shore. They thought I'd suffered a serious concussion, perhaps fallen into a coma. "You slept like the dead," he told me. I told him that I felt fine and that I was sorry for causing such a stir, but that right now, more than anything, I needed a little space to get my head in order. "Just 5 minutes," I said. My mother and the doctor voiced their concerns, but ultimately respected my wishes. They left the room. Alone, I went to my window. My house sat at the top of a hill and had a nice view of the town. From my perch, I looked out over 100 sleepy homes. I looked out over a silent schoolyard, a rundown movie theater, and 20 or so boats bobbing at the dock. Then, I looked past that. I looked out to the sea, to a little island with a stone spire. I looked out to Cold Rock Keep, and quiet as a breath, I said, "Thank you. Thank you for everything." You see, dreams are strange things. Sometimes a dream is merely a vignette, a slice of time so infinitesimally small that you wonder if it was ever there at all. Other times, dreams are sweeping, so long and so vast that you live a second life inside of them. That night, my dreams had been longer and more real than any dream I've ever had. It spanned years, decades. In that dream, I played catch, traveled the world, shared pints of beer, and did lots and lots of fishing. In that dream, I said goodbye to my brother.
That was The Legend of Cold Rock Keep, written by J.G. Martin and performed by Jesse Cornett. A chilling reminder that sometimes the light we follow is the very thing that leads us into darkness. If you enjoyed that tale, you'll be glad to know it comes from Martin's outstanding collection, Crooked Antlers, a collection of short horror stories, published by Velox Books and available now on Amazon. This book is brimming with nightmares, government agents chasing urban legends, expeditions vanishing into the unknown, astronauts descending into madness on the far side of the moon, and so much more. Each page drags you deeper into a world that is never quite what it seems, a world that chills you with every turn. We're in the midst of a 3-episode streak spotlighting J.G. Martin and Velox Books here on Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. You heard one of his tales last episode. You've just experienced another tonight, and you can look forward to a third in our next. In the meantime, our good friend Eric Peabody has been performing several other stories from Crooked Antlers this September over on Horror Hill. If you'd like to experience more of Martin's twisted imagination, be sure to check out Eric's performances there as well. Finally, don't forget, Evil Idol 2025 is still going strong all September and into October. Each weekday, a new entry drops on YouTube, and your votes determine who moves forward. Be part of the action, support your favorites, and help us crown the next voice of horror. If tonight's tale chilled you to the bone and you'd like more like it, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Those reviews help us more than you know. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. That's where you'll find not only our weekly podcast episodes, but also every Evil Idol 2025 entry as it goes live. Comment, vote, and become part of the action. Every voice matters, especially yours. And if you'd like to support us even further, head over to chillingtalesfordarknights.com and become a member. For just $7.99 a month or less with an annual plan, you'll gain access to ad-free episodes, early releases, and exclusive bonus content you won't hear anywhere else. We're also active on Facebook, Instagram, X, and now TikTok, where brand new content will be dropping very soon. Follow us today to make sure you don't miss out. That concludes tonight's voyage into the haunted waters of memory and myth. Until next time, remember, turn off the lights and turn on the dark. Sweet dreams, listeners. Sweet dreams.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights.